Hello everyone and welcome along to another episode of the Turfcast podcast pre-game show with me, Joe Redmond. And it's an absolute pleasure to be able to get the second video / podcast out in 2 weeks. Because obviously we had a bit of an unfortunate break early on, so I'm glad to be able to manage my time a little bit better and manage to get the second one out this week. But of course, it's Spurs this weekend at Turf Moor. Not in front of the cameras, but it is on Sunday because of Spurs' European exploits on Thursday, which, by the way, was pretty embarrassing for Tottenham. NS Mura beat them. I've never even heard of them either until Thursday. If you missed that one, go and check it out. I think they scored with the last kick of the game. I think NS Mura actually got 1-0 up and then Spurs come back into it and then they still managed to beat them somehow. But of course, we've got a Spurs fan coming up, as we always do on the pre-game show, so we'll pick his brains on that. But I want to know what you think the score prediction is going to be for this weekend's game. I'm feeling slightly confident. You can hear my prediction coming up in a little bit, obviously in the main part of the pre-game show. But I'm feeling slightly confident that we can get a point at least, maybe. I nearly said win. I'm on the fence a little bit, but I do think we can do it. We've had some decent results against Spurs down the years. We've had some decent results against Antonio Conte down the years. Obviously, the 3-2 away at Chelsea when he was the European Premier League champion at the time. All right, they had 2 men sent off in the first half, but still we managed to get a very impressive win. And of course, we've managed to beat Spurs at home for a few seasons in a row, didn't we? I can't remember exactly. I remember a few years ago we beat them 2-1, didn't we? So fingers crossed we can get a positive result. But anyway, that's enough from me. Let's hear what our Spurs fan has to say this week. And joining me this week is Ricky from The Last Word on Spurs. Right, just like that, as promised, joining us from Spurs podcast is Ricky Sachs, and he's joining us from The Last Word on Spurs, a very popular Spurs podcast as well. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you here, Ricky.
Thank you, my friend. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you as well, mate. But let's get straight into it. I know we just had a little chat off air about it, and you'd said you were lying low because of the recent defeat in the Conference League against NS Mura, which was last night at the time of recording this, because we're recording this on Friday night, and you got beat against, are they Slovenian, Slovakian?
Yeah, Slovenian. I think
I've never heard of.
I'll be honest, my friend, as bad as it's been, I'm trying to blot this out of my mind. It's people say this is the worst defeat ever in our history.
Yeah, I don't know about that. It might well be. You'll know more than me. I didn't look at that, and I didn't immediately think, wow, that's embarrassing. I thought, well, my original thought was, oh, they must have the kids out. You didn't. So that does obviously add another layer of embarrassment. But then I checked it again and I was just like, yes, it's embarrassing. But to be fair to them, it's the Conference League. They're probably just not taking it seriously. Just similar fashion to when we got beat by Lincoln a few years ago in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
We just didn't take it that serious. Like we should have done. And I wish we did. But Daesh never seems to take the cup competitions that seriously. And that was my thought with you. Is that a fair assessment, or is it just downright the most embarrassing thing that you've ever seen as a Spurs fan?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like we keep saying it's the most embarrassing thing for the last 3 years with Tottenham and some of the results we've churned out in this competition. I mean, it seems to have been our most embarrassing result for the last, 4 or 5 months being in this competition so far. Being honest with you, I just think we are really struggling to motivate some of the players to play in this competition and for Tottenham generally. The likes of the Dele Allis, the Harry Winks, the Davinson Sanchez's, I just struggle to understand really if there's a way back for some of these players. It just is quite staggering, the decline in some of these individuals that Spurs have got at the moment. And I think it's beyond the point where we've just had a new manager come in and we're meant to be having the new manager bounce. I mean, Conte is one of the most successful managers in the world. I think many would argue he's top 5 managers in the world. I still don't understand why he's here. I don't understand why he's accepted this job because it is such a big job. And I think like Mourinho, like Nuno, I think you only realise when you're in the job just what you've got to work with and just how challenging the job is. So Antonio Conte's got a massive job on his hands. I wish him all the luck in the world. I can tell you there was pure excitement, especially on our YouTube channel when obviously Conte joined the club, because I think we just couldn't understand how, second time running, of course, we tried to get him in the summer, how we've convinced this man to come to Spurs. So he's got a massive rebuilding job ahead of him. I wish him all the luck in the world. And I said to you off air, and I'll say it again on air to you guys, if this doesn't work out, then I think we will fold as a podcast and become a golf podcast or snooker podcast. Doing this at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough. So why is the job so big then? Like, what is it? Because obviously, from an outsider looking in, I won't know as much as you will. I look at Spurs and I think big size club, new stadium, doing quite well off the pitch. But for the last 3-4 years, it doesn't just seem to click on the pitch. And I always seem to just be like, oh well, not even like a manager thing, but there must be some sort of thing going on at the club that means that they can't progress. And then I always put it down to maybe it's Daniel Levy, but then off the pitch, you're doing very well. And then so he could always say, well, I'm doing my job. So is it a case of Daniel Levy? Is it a case of wrong managers at the wrong times, even though they're good managers? Maybe they're just not rebuilding managers. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. Why do you think it's such a big job?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a number of different factors. Number one, it's been really poor recruitment over the last, 18 to 24 months. And I think everyone will acknowledge that Daniel Levy as a chairman has done some wonderful things for Spurs off the pitch in terms of the stadium you touched upon there. The training ground's magnificent. I think there's no doubt about it. And those two things that obviously he's personally overseen has been obviously quite incredible. We have got one of the best stadiums in the world. We've got one of the best training grounds in the world. But ultimately, Spurs were a club that didn't spend on transfers for 518 days. And I know I can speak to you as a Burnley fan. I know that maybe you feel there's not been enough investment over the course of the last 3 to 4 years to make Burnley a real established, sustainable Premier League club, although you have been to really kind of push on to maybe, let's say, a top 10 finish, or dare I say above that, like a Leicester, for example. I just think Spurs are in a situation where we allowed the squad to almost deteriorate. And that was also down to Pochettino because he was a great coach. And I mean, what the club tried to do is once they realised with Pochettino that the players were just exhausted, and at the end of that journey after the Champions League final, there was no way forward under Pochettino anymore. Unfortunately, he was a wonderful manager, but unfortunately, I think the dressing room just felt they could no longer believe in his philosophy and ultimately win the trophy. So Spurs then turned to a serial winner in Jose Mourinho, who's won everything in the game. And typically with Mourinho, you normally get Mourinho the trophies. And then obviously you get then you obviously get the situation after where you have to deal with a fallout. Unfortunately, as Spurs fans, we got the worst of it. We got no trophies and we had to deal with the hangover. Yeah. So it's just been very, very difficult. And then we went for a 72-day search for a manager, which I'm sure is well documented in the summer. Spurs had Fonseca lined up. It was then called off last minute. And of course, they tried to go for Gattuso. Don't ask me why. Just, again, irrational management at the top level. And Spurs ended up with Nuno Espirito Santo, who, by all accounts, went for interviews at Palace and Everton. It wasn't deemed good enough. But yet Spurs decided to offer him a 2-year contract. And that lasted, 3 to 4 months. And here we are with Antonio Conte, one of the best managers in the world. Quite honestly, I don't know where we're going next. We should be very excited because he's one of the best managers in the world. But just from some of the factors I've said there, poor recruitment, not significant enough investment in general, he's got a massive job in his hands. And I do want to believe with Antonio Conte that he wouldn't have come to Tottenham unless he genuinely believed he would have got backed, because obviously he had talks in the summer, which ultimately broke down. Spurs have gone back there again, grovelling, pleading with Antonio Conte to take the job. Of course, they've got Fabio Paratici there, the managing director, who worked with Conte at Juventus. So I want to say the future's bright, but obviously, again, a result like last night is a reality check of just how much work there is to do with this squad. And I have to say, despite obviously my scathing views on some of them, there is some talent there, of course. You've got Harry Kane, you've got Son, you've got Lucas Moura. But it's just, I mean, Sunyan Ndombele, our record signing, it's just so frustrating when a player can only do 60 minutes. And last night, there was one moment in the game, we're only about 5 or 10 minutes in, where he actually doesn't want the ball, which is really worrying against a side of such... I want to be nice to NS Mura, but they're not, if we're putting them in equivalent of English terms, they're Burton Albion. So it's really hard. And I think this game at the weekend, which I know we'll bring it on to, is really crucial for Tottenham because people always say, we have this running joke in our WhatsApp group on the last one on Spurs, that Burnley is always a tough place to go. But you'll know more than me. Like the home form at Burnley hasn't been great. So
it's a myth. Well, this season it's a myth. The fact that Burnley's a tough place to go. That we've won once all season. That's home and away, and that was against Brentford, who all right, they got off to a decent start. I do ultimately still think they'll go down. They've really started sliding now, and I think they'll go. We've played Leeds at home, who aren't all that this season. Could only manage a draw. Scored 3 goals at home to Palace. All right, they're decent this season, but again, could only manage a draw. But I do think we're starting to change it. I do think we are starting to. Our form's getting better. So fingers crossed we can push on this weekend. And I think if you play like you did on Thursday, we might be a really good shout. But I think that let's be honest, you're not going to play like that because you've got that out your system, and there's no way. If you'd have put that performance in against NS Mura against Nuno, I'd be like, right, these guys are on the absolute slide. We are going to absolutely destroy him. But Conte, they've gone up there, they put a rocket up all their arses, and there's no way. There's no way. It's like that. He's a similar man to Daesh in that sense. He's going to go in there. He's going to be passionate. He's going to call a spade a spade. If they shit, he's going to tell them all that they shit. So there's no way they're going to put a performance in like that again. And I'm a little bit worried it's a bit of a wounded animal situation, if I'm being honest. And Harry Kane loves the goal against us, doesn't he? Let's be honest. Harry Kane loves scoring against Burnley.
Not many goals this season in the Premier League in general, but I mean, he scored a good goal last night. Again, with Kane, I know from the outside looking in, I suppose obviously everyone's intrigued to know what is going on with Harry Kane. I can say as a Spurs fan, I'm not sure if even we know what it is. Obviously, of course, with Conte coming in now, you'd like to think that he's got the motivation back there where he's working for one of the best managers in the world. But, it's not going to be easy. I think for Kane, it's the first time among Spurs fans now, having been there the weekend against Leeds, please excuse me, against Leeds. And it was the first time with Kane, definitely where I noticed that fans were really getting on his back to the point where he was missing chances. And there is this pressure around Kane. And it's funny because obviously the irony about Kane is that everyone questioned at the very start whether Kane would even be good enough to play for Tottenham. And now he's got this obviously very strange pressure 6 years down the line as to whether, is he going to get back that elite scoring form that we've seen? Because for country, I must add, for England, obviously he's on fire. He's doing really well in the Europa Conference League in terms of his goal return. But as we know, the bread and butter is the Premier League. So and he's been in and around the top scorer of that for the last 5-6 years and has won the Golden Boot. I think he won Playmaker as well last season for both Golden Boot and Assist Maker as well. So I just think with Kane, there's a lot going on there behind the scenes. And, I'd like to think Conte coming in is ultimately the game changer there, but I'm not 100% sure that is going to be enough to keep Kane happy. And I've always said now, with Conte coming in, with a manager of that level, that quite frankly, I think anybody now that doesn't want to be here, just let him go. Conte, you've got to trust him. You've got to believe in him. And although Conte is a short-term fix, he doesn't last anywhere longer than 2 years, he does seem to get sides winning. But this is Tottenham, and we've been there under Mourinho. So, listen, there's no guarantee of trophies with Tottenham. But ultimately, Conte, the whole point of it is that hopefully he'll leave us in a better place than where he found us. Well,
you would think so. Yeah, you would think so with the state that Nuno left you in. I never thought that were going to work. I didn't think he were going to be sacked so soon. Thought we might see the season out, but I never thought it were going to work. But it's interesting that you mentioned Harry.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Nuno, I've got to say on Nuno, just unfortunately for him, lovely gentleman, lovely guy, really top bloke, just wrong manager, wrong time, wrong style, wrong everything. He'll do very well, I think, elsewhere in a different team that, wants to play out a bit more cautious, wants to play in a way it's organised, defend first. Unfortunately, he's not a Tottenham manager, but I wish him all the best. Lovely bloke.
Yeah, weirdly enough, I think he'd do quite well at Burnley if Daesh left. In a weird way, I think he'd do well here. Say if Daesh went tomorrow, for example, which he's not going to, but if he did, I think Nuno might be a good shout for Burnley gaffer. So what can we expect then? What sort of like Tottenham, that style of playing, and where you're going to be over the next 2 or 3 years with Conte? What do you think we can expect to see from Tottenham?
God, that is a loaded question. That's like $1 million question. What do I expect? There's what I hope, and then what's reality. I would like to think Conte will, overhaul the current squad. I don't think that if we do this preview a year on from now, which may well happen, I don't think, like I say, we'll be talking about the same 11 players that will be going out there against Burnley at Turf Moor in a year's time from today. I just think it'll be a completely different squad. I think he knows there's a rebuild to take place. We've been saying for the last 3-4 years with Tottenham as a rebuild, and it just feels like all we're saying is rebuild, transformation. It feels that same, adjective being used. But I just think at the moment, Spurs are in a situation where we do need points. And I will say that on paper, we've got a favourable run between now and Christmas where we can go on a decent run. And as crazy as I sound now on the back of one of the most humiliating defeats in our history, top 4 is still doable. But obviously United still bring points in, a really good interim manager, of course, in Ralph Rangnick. So that will make things harder. But I think for Spurs, with Conte coming in, listen, Conte's an elite manager. So he'll be looking to get back into the Champions League ASAP. He's not here to pick up the paycheck. He could have easily waited for United to come along. So I think he's here to win. But if he's here to win, he's got a lot to change in the next year or two on the playing side of things.
Yeah, I was looking at the league table earlier, and just because Tottenham always seems to be like a bit of a circus, and it seems to be a little bit louder at the minute, especially because of last night. To be fair, I think that's the main reason. A decent win at the weekend against, albeit a lead side that were a little bit poor this season, but you showed decent character. You came back, and then Conte showed a lot of passion. So I remember thinking at the time, like, here we go, fuck's sake, we could have played them 3 weeks ago when they had Nuno, and they'd have been, they'd have probably lost that game. Now they're going to bounce into us with a new manager bounce. But obviously then you lose the NS Mura game. But I don't really see that as part of it. I see that you've got your win in the Premier League, and I think you will have a bit of a new manager bounce in the Premier League. Obviously, hoping it's not going to be this weekend, but we'll see. But yeah, let's talk about Burnley then. Like, what's your sort of like perception of Burnley? Because it's always interesting to get people's thoughts on it, because it seems to be this big thing on Twitter, and I'll say the same sentence I say on every single show. I should not really gauge public opinion from the trolls on Twitter, but there's this like perception that we're just kick and hope, deserve to be in the Championship, all that sort of thing, which is obviously a lot of bollocks. You are where you deserve to be. But yeah, what's your sort of opinion on the Clarets?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Burnley have got a style of play which works for them, and it's served them well. They're an established Premier League club, whether people want to believe that or not. It's been in the league now for you have to correct me on this. It feels like you've been here for a good 5-6 years now. Am I wrong? It feels
I think it's a little bit longer than that. I sometimes get this question wrong myself. I think it's around seven. It's quite a while. It's quite a while. Yeah.
I feel like Burnley are always one of those teams that always poses problems, and that's credit to Sean Dyche. I feel obviously Burnley, in a way, they maybe will feel that in order for them to go on to the next level, does that mean at some point, moving on from Dyche to go for a more progressive manager that is going to play a bit more of a free-flowing attacking style of football? And what I would say to you on that is Spurs obviously put out their statement when going for Nuno about free-flowing attacking, so don't always believe what you may read about or you may get. But no, I mean, like I say, Burnley, very well-run club, great fans, I would say. And they've always been a hard team to play against. I always felt that at home, away, you've got to fight for the win. And that's credit to obviously the way Sean Dyche sets up his teams. It's never, I'll be honest, I don't think it's ever been pretty on the eye. I'll be honest, it's always been a tough watch. That's how I would I'd say it would be. I mean, as a fan, it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on that. But ultimately, as Spurs is a club and where we want to be, no disrespect to Burnley at all. Spurs should be approaching this fixture looking to win. If they don't win, it should be a massive disappointment, because Spurs are a club that, with what they've spent and the fans' expectation as well, which is always dangerous, the club want to be obviously competing for the top four. As difficult as the last couple of seasons have been, with obviously not being in the Champions League.
Yeah, it's interesting though, and I always hear fans of other clubs sort of like say their sort of thing, especially fans of the traditional, top six, big six, whatever you call it, because Burnley do actually press quite high up the pitch, but a lot of the fans, especially big six fans, won't see that, because against you, you're not going to do it.
There's a perception around long ball, and they hoof the ball, they don't play the ball on the ground. I mean, listen, I've got to be honest, I've been really impressed, and you might have not got his first name right here. Is it Max Cornell? I think he's been really impressive. Is it 5 goals, 7 games? I mean,
absolutely love the guy. Yeah, I mean, I love the
guy. Whoever's found him, this is why I get frustrated as a Spurs fan. Why are we not all over a player like that? How have we allowed someone like that? And I know obviously this is football, right? You get players like that slip through the net and whatever. But listen, what a catch that's been for Burnley. What a player he's been. And again, it's just whether Burnley can, match his ambitions financially or keep him sweet. Because I suppose for him, he'll look at it, and there's no disrespect to Burnley. It's almost like he'll think about it, if he can have a really good season at Burnley, where does that next get him, unfortunately? Because I just think it's always very hard to retain your best players. We've been a Spurs fans, when the likes of United come calling, as we've seen, City come calling, it is hard to sometimes keep those players. And that's where it becomes difficult, as we saw with Harry Kane in the summer. But been a great find. Max Cornell looks really good on the eye. And I'm absolutely terrified on maybe Davinson Sanchez or Eric Dyer coming up against him, because, of course, we're out with Christian Romero at the moment, which is a big blow.
Yeah, honestly, he's been an absolute breath of fresh air, man. Like he's infectious. Like he's always smiling, and he's one of the only players that will get the ball at his feet and he'll run. And if the ball falls to him and anywhere in the 18-yard box, he's thinking about hitting it. You know what I mean? Whereas a lot of the other players, you just think they will think about bringing it down and then maybe trying to find Chris Wood or something like that, or stick it on his head or something like that.
Yeah.
But he's just, he's infectious, and he's been fantastic. Like you say, he's scored the same amount or more goals than Messi and Ronaldo put together this season. And that just says it all, really. He's been fantastic. But yeah, it's just such a non-Burnley signing. The fact that we've got this guy that's from the Ivory Coast for a start, and then we've bought him from Lyon, and it's just such a non-Burnley signing. And he's quite an attacking-minded player. And another good thing about it is it takes the pressure off Dwight McNeil a little bit, because he was our only attacking outlet. So I was kind of hoping that there'd be a bit more sort of like two-pronged attack with Maxwell Cornet and Dwight on the wings. But I think Dwight has tended to be a little bit more sort of like been roped into a bit more of a defensive role, which has been a little bit unfortunate to see. But he's still got his threat there and stuff. So fingers crossed we can take it to you this weekend. But what are you looking forward to this weekend then? So like, are you coming up or anything like that, or are you going to be watching it down in London?
Well, the plan is I would love to come down and watch it. It's my son's first birthday. So I've got a very nice distraction should this result go completely wrong, which may happen, and I've got a very good excuse. But I will be there for the return leg, of course, at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But we've obviously got a number of our members on the last one on Spurs treading up to Burnley. God bless them. It's obviously it's a long way to go. It's even, I tell you, it's cold down in London, so I can't imagine what it's like up in Burnley. It must be absolutely freezing up there, right?
It's been a bit bitter this week. Yeah. The temperature, I think, across the whole of the UK, to be fair, I think someone put it on Twitter, like the temperature drop off has been violent. This girl worded it as, and that's the perfect way to describe it. I've been scraping arse off car every morning. I say scraping arse off the car. I'm too lazy to do it. I just go outside. My car's on my drive, so I'll just turn the engine on, come back to it in 15 minutes, and it's all gone. I'm too lazy to do it. But yeah, it's been minus in the morning anyway. Put it that way.
I tell you, this is what worries me. Are some of our players going to fancy it? But look, on paper with Spurs, again, I think the quality of the squad there should be enough to get a result against Burnley. And, I do back them too. You may ask me for a prediction. If I can give you my prediction now, I'd probably go for a 3-1 Spurs win. It's not a confident 3-1 Spurs win, but I can't come on to a Burnley, obviously, channel and not back a Tottenham win.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm one of them that will be quite realistic. And if I'm on a Man City channel, for example, or a Spurs channel, I'll be like, yeah, we'll probably get beat today, but it is what it is, sort of vibe. But I wasn't, when you were pointing at Conte, I remember thinking, fucking hell, typical. They've been handing points out to everybody, and then they get Conte, and they're going to come to Burnley in a couple of weeks and turn us over. But then the NS Mura defeat has maybe given me a little bit of confidence. I think we might get something. Not necessarily a win. I'm thinking 1-1. I'm a fence sitter. I love sitting on the fence, but I am thinking 1-1. We've had a few results against Spurs down the years recently anyway.
Yeah, I'm being confident saying 3-1, but listen, the game with Spurs at the moment, because Spurs' defending is so erratic, they will concede. They will 100% concede. So, I want to say if Burnley can keep the door shut defensively, they've got a great chance of not only drawing but winning the game. So, I was going to say it'd be an intriguing watch, but I think that the cup game was of such poor quality.
Oh, it was so boring, weren't it? Oh, God. I didn't even go on that. I live in Burnley. I've moved recently. I say recently, it's a year ago now. But I used to literally live around the corner from the turf, and I live at the other side of the town. Yeah. And I would have gone on that game if I didn't live, if I hadn't moved. But I just thought, you know what, it's raining, I can't be arsed. I can do a shift at work because I still work from home. So I'll just do that and earn some money and go on. And I was listening to it on, I think they did a YouTube stream, Burnley Football Club. I think I even turned the stream off. It was that boring, and I put something else on. It's not great.
I tell you how bad it was for me. I think it was so bad. I think Everton deserved to go through. I know there had to be a winner. I know it went to penalties, but you could quite easily have said, right, no one deserves to go through in this game. It was that poor quality, but listen, it's a massive game in the weekend. Spurs need to, like I say, find a result in the Premier League because, ultimately that is the bread and butter. And that's what Conte's here for, to try and get the club back, like I say, focused on trying to compete for that top four.
What sort of team can we expect from Spurs then? Because I doubt it's going to be the same team as the NS Mura game. But is it going to be a similar sort of side to the Leeds game, you think?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, again, listen, I expect Harry Kane to start. I mean, Hugo Lloris in goal. We've got Reguilon left back, Emerson Royale on the right. Obviously, Spurs now playing with left, obviously wing backs as well. Defensively, what we're going to have, Davis, potentially Davis, Dyer as part of that defence. Højbjerg midfield and Ndombele possibly. So, I mean, Lucas Moura, of course. There's attacking players out there, but also with Tottenham, I just find if something goes against Spurs, for me, they've got no character and adversity. So I think they're going to have to cope with the weather, number one. That sounds really bad being a southerner like I am. But, Spurs, some of these players, they don't like it. They don't like it. Some of these players are just not willing to, roll their sleeves up and fight. They're going to need to do it against Burnley. Burnley will be a real test for a number of these players about bouncing back.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, it's that's another sort of like thing. As soon as if Burnley are on TV, which I know it's not at the weekend, but if we're on TV, you can guarantee that the commentator is going to mention the weather within the first 2 minutes, and the cameraman's going to zoom in on some of the terraced chimney houses or one of the old mills, one of the old big chimney mills. Don't get me wrong, the weather is pretty cold at the minute, but it's the same everywhere. Well, to be honest, it's Burnley fans that they mourn about it, or some do on Twitter, like, oh, why have they zoomed in on houses again, or they've mentioned the weather again. But everybody, if it's raining, like if it's raining and it's cold, everyone goes, oh, it's good for us that. They won't fancy this. So it works both ways, you know what I mean? So I am kind of hoping for a little bit of rain maybe, but then at the same vibe, does Maxwell Cornet want to be playing in sideways, freezing rain? Probably not. So that might take him out of the game a little bit. But yeah, Ricky, thank you very much for coming on the show. I'll just give you one last chance to sort of like tell everyone where they can find your podcast and YouTube channel.
Thank you so much. Yeah, if you want weekly Spurs therapy, which seems to be the way at the moment, all therapy and it's free. You can find us over at Last Word on Spurs. That's on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And like I say, feel free to come and check us out. Of course, we'll be doing a review on the Burnley game. Be on Monday as opposed to Sunday. We normally, like I say, review games straight after the final whistle. Don't ask me how we do that, but we do. And yeah, thank you so much for bringing me on. And I look forward to obviously speaking to you again on the return fixture, where hopefully both of us are a bit further up the table.
Yeah, fingers crossed, definitely. We need to turn some of these performances into wins. I do still think we will be okay because we're playing quite well, but we need to start turning it into wins. And fingers crossed for us, obviously, it's this weekend, but it needs to start happening. If we're still in this position come mid-January, late January, going into February, then I might start panicking a little bit. But like I said, Ricky, thank you very much for coming on the show. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. And, of course, we will see you next time.